Let us discuss JDBC or Java Database Connectivity. Data persistence. Data stored in a persistent medium like file or database. Java Database Connectivity is a database access technology in Java. It has a set of APIs or application programming interfaces which defines the access to database. So the architecture is like this. There's a Java application, there's an JDBC API and a vendor specific JDBC driver and the database. The Java application uses the JDBC API and with the help of the driver accesses the database to store data or retrieve data. The steps are like this. You need to put the jar file supplied by the database vendor in the class path. So set the class path. Person class path is the current class path. Dot is the current directory, and this is the jar file of database MySQL. If the jar file is elsewhere, for example D Java JDBC, then give the complete path. Next is to load the driver class. So this is the driver class in MySQL. Next, use the driver manager to get the connection, passing the URL, login and the password. This retrieves a connection object, and connection is not a class, it's an interface. Next is to retrieve the statement object from the connection by calling create statement. It retrieves the statement. Again, this is the interface. Using this statement you can get the result set by executing the query. So statement.execute query, for example select star from employee, returns a result set object which has all the records. So you can use a for loop to iterate through the result set to fetch all records. Now let us go to the program. So we have this program here, my JDBC test. So it's an application with the public static void main. I have defined fields which is initialized from a file through the properties object. So to read this file I have another class. So you can see it's reading this file. So from my class I call read file which returns me an hash map. So here it is returning a hash map. So it is using a properties class and it loads the file through a file input string. So what happens is it loads this, it gets the properties, the value of them, and adds them to the hash map. So we have, for example, JDBC driver key and com MySQL JDBC driver as value. This way all the values are stored in the hash map. So it initialize all these values by getting from the hash map. So this ensures that my application is not having any hard coded value. So I start the steps, everything throws exception, so put a try catch. So first is to load the driver class using class.forName. So this loads the driver class into the memory. Then using the driver manager, I get the connection with my URL, login, and the password. So password I am not storing. I can use get password method. So if the password has not been loaded from the file, so I go to do from the system console. But if it is not equal to null, there is some value from the configuration file, properties file, it returns that password. So you can see that from a example that password is given here. If it is not given, then it will ask for the password from the console. Using the console, let's say read password and return this password to the program. It does not echo on the console. So I get all these values and gets the connection, and from the connection I'll create a statement which returns me a statement, and after executing the query in the statement object, pass the query to it, whatever query you have written here. And returns a result set. Now to get the details of the table, now this result set is having the values from a particular table. So the get metadata returns me a result set metadata. So from this result set metadata, I get the column count, how many columns are there, and using that as a factor, I use a for loop and gets for each column the column name, get column name. So it starts from 1 and ends at the number of columns. So here I am printing all the column names with using a formatted printf with -8 characters. It fills up the remaining with blank spaces, so it will get in a tabular form. I will use a while loop and iterate through my result set and use the same number of columns as to how many are there, and I use the generic method get object and print the output. So let us see. First is to set the class path. Then I need to run this. First compile it. And then run it. So the database is the same. And if I change the query, and check here, okay, I saved it. So we can see the data retrieved from the database.